On the morning of January 25th, 2019, a doorbell camera in Tomball, Texas recorded something that should have solved a murder. Instead, it created one of the most haunting, unsolved cases in American history. At 6:52 a.m., a figure stepped out of a dark Nissan Frontier pickup truck. The figure was wearing a long flowing dress that looked like a moo-moo, go-go boots, and a stringy wig that covered most of the face. It looked like an older woman taking a morning walk. The figure crossed the street and walked directly toward a young woman who was setting up items in her driveway for a garage sale. The young woman looked up, smiled, and said 2 words, "Good morning." In the next 3 seconds, the figure pulled a handgun from beneath the dress and fired 3 rapid shots. The young woman collapsed onto the driveway. Then there was a pause, 1 to 2 seconds of silence. The shooter stepped forward, stood directly over her body, and fired a 4th and final shot. A coup de grace. Then the figure turned, sprinted back to the truck with a stride and speed that didn't match the disguise at all, jumped in, and drove away. The entire encounter lasted less than 90 seconds. The woman on the driveway was Elizabeth Barraza. Everyone called her Liz. She was 29 years old. She died the next day in the hospital. Her family donated her organs. To understand why Liz Barraza's murder is one of the most frustrating cases in modern American crime, you need to understand who she was and why she had no business being a murder victim. Liz worked a steady administrative job. She had been married to her husband Sergio for nearly 5 years. They lived in Princeton Place, a quiet suburban neighborhood where the biggest excitement was someone's dog getting loose. Liz and Sergio were deeply involved in the 501st Legion, an international Star Wars fan organization where members build screen-accurate costumes of Imperial characters and volunteer at children's hospitals through the Make-A-Wish Foundation. Liz spent her weekends dressed as a stormtrooper, visiting kids with terminal illnesses to make them smile. She had no criminal record, no drug involvement, no gambling debts, no enemies, no restraining orders, no history of domestic violence. Her father, Bob Newell, described her as someone who had a wonderful life and brought joy to everyone around her. In criminal profiling, Liz Barraza was what investigators call an ultra-low-risk victim. She had virtually 0 factors that would make her a target for violence. When an ultra-low-risk victim is executed with military precision, there are only 2 explanations. Either she had a secret life that nobody knew about, which investigators thoroughly ruled out, or someone with a deeply personal motive or a financial incentive hired a professional to eliminate her. The garage sale was supposed to raise extra cash for a trip. Liz and Sergio were about to celebrate their 5th wedding anniversary in Orlando, Florida. The trip was scheduled for Sunday, January 27th, just 2 days after the murder. Liz's suitcase was already packed and sitting inside the house. She had posted about the garage sale on social media, announcing the date, the time, and the location. Friday morning, January 25th, starting early. That post is the key to everything. Whoever killed Liz knew exactly where she would be, exactly when she would be alone, and exactly how long they had before anyone else showed up. The timeline of that morning is terrifying in its precision. The night before, on January 24th, security cameras from neighboring homes and businesses recorded a dark Nissan Frontier circling the Princeton Place neighborhood. At 2 a.m. on January 25th, the same truck was captured again, now inside the neighborhood, closer to the Barraza home. The killer had been there for hours, waiting. At 6:08 a.m., Liz left the house briefly to grab Starbucks coffee, then returned and began carrying items out to the driveway. At 6:48 a.m., Sergio kissed his wife goodbye and drove to work. The moment his car disappeared down the street, the Nissan Frontier began moving. 4 minutes. That's all it took. At 6:51 a.m., the truck drove past the Barraza house, made a U-turn at the end of the street, came back, and parked across the road. At 6:52, the figure stepped out. At 6:52, Liz said good morning. At 6:52, 4 gunshots. At 6:53, the killer was back in the truck, speeding away. But then something strange happened. At 6:55 a.m., just 2 minutes after the shooting, the Nissan Frontier reappeared. Instead of escaping through the main entrance of the neighborhood, the truck made a U-turn near the front gate and drove back into the neighborhood, passing right by the crime scene where Liz was lying on the ground. Then it disappeared toward a dead-end street at the back of the subdivision where a greenbelt connected to a main road, outside the range of any security cameras. The U-turn is the detail that keeps investigators up at night. There are 2 theories. The first is psychological. The killer wanted to see, wanted to drive past and confirm that Liz was dead. Detective Wallace Wyatt described it as the killer wanting to look at their handiwork. The second theory is tactical. Under the massive adrenaline dump that follows a killing, the shooter's spatial memory collapsed. They turned the wrong way toward the main gate, realized that gate likely had high-resolution cameras or might be blocked by an arriving police car, panicked, and reversed course to find the pre-planned escape route through the greenbelt. Either way, the killer knew the neighborhood well enough to know that a greenbelt exit existed. That kind of knowledge doesn't come from a Google Maps search. It comes from physically being there, studying the streets, walking the paths. The disguise is a masterpiece of anti-forensic engineering. The muumuu-style dress completely hides the body's proportions. You can't determine shoulder-to-hip ratio, which is the primary method for identifying gender on surveillance footage. The boots may have contained height-altering insoles. The wig obscured the face and hairline. From the doorbell camera footage, the figure looks like an older woman. But independent analysts who studied the sprint back to the truck noted that the stride length, arm swing, and torso rotation were biomechanically consistent with a male runner. Sergeant Michael Ritchie and Detective Wallace Wyatt both publicly stated that the killer could very well be a man disguised as a woman. Cross-gender disguise is a hallmark of professional contract killers and highly surveillance-aware stalkers. The shooting pattern tells its own story. 3 rapid shots to the center mass to drop the target, a deliberate pause of 1 to 2 seconds, then a single finishing shot delivered while standing directly over the body. This is not a robbery gone wrong. This is not a random act of violence. This is an execution. Neighbor Candy Ellis heard the shots from across the street. When she looked outside, she saw Liz on the ground. The garage door alarm triggered at 7:19 a.m., sending alerts to Sergio's phone and to Liz's parents. A Life Flight helicopter transported Liz to Memorial Hermann Hospital. She was pronounced dead on January 26th. The investigation has chased every thread. Sergio Barraza, the husband, was the first person scrutinized. The marriage showed no signs of abuse, but there was a $500,000 life insurance policy on Liz. $500,000 is motive enough to hire a killer, except for one thing. 6 years later, Sergio has never filed a claim on that policy. Not once. He has never touched the money. He voluntarily surrendered his phone, computer, passwords, bank records, and social media accounts. He passed a polygraph test. Digital forensics found no deleted messages, no suspicious calls, no financial transfers linked to any hitman network or to the Nissan Frontier. Sergeant Ritchie has repeatedly defended Sergio publicly. He has done nothing but comply with every request we've made. We found nothing to indicate he was involved. Sergio eventually remarried, a decision that drew public criticism. He addressed it directly in a 2023 interview. I know a lot of people see me as the main suspect in her death, but investigators say the evidence clears him. In January 2025, Sergeant Ritchie revealed a new direction. He's now investigating whether someone other than Sergio stood to benefit financially from Liz's death. A third-party beneficiary, someone in the extended family, a business associate, or someone who may have manipulated insurance documents or inheritance structures. One thing I always ask myself, Ritchie said, is who else could benefit from her death? If it's not the husband, then I'm trying to figure out who else could benefit. The 501st Legion connection has also been investigated. Within any tight-knit hobby community, personal conflicts can escalate. Competition over costume quality, leadership positions within local garrisons, or online grievances between members. The fact that the killer's disguise showed costume design thinking, including layered clothing, a wig, and boots for height manipulation, is consistent with someone familiar with the world of cosplay fabrication. In January 2022, Detective Wyatt revealed that investigators had traveled to Miami, Florida, to interview a person of interest. The fact that Liz's anniversary trip was also to Florida created a geographic link that investigators couldn't ignore. The theory that Liz was killed by mistake, that the shooter targeted the wrong house or the wrong woman, was quickly dismissed. The killer drove directly to Liz's driveway. The killer waited for her husband to leave. The killer knew about the garage sale. This was personal. In December 2023, the case was elevated. The FBI, the Texas Rangers, and the Texas Anti-Gang Unit all joined the investigation. The involvement of the Anti-Gang Unit is significant. Their mission is to dismantle organized criminal networks, not investigate domestic disputes. Their presence suggests intelligence linking this case to a professional criminal operation, possibly involving a stolen vehicle, an untraceable weapon, or a hired shooter sourced through an underground network. The technology being deployed is cutting edge. Investigators obtained geofencing warrants years ago, forcing tech companies to hand over metadata for every mobile device that pinged cell towers near Princeton Place during the critical hours of January 24th and 25th, 2019. If the killer carried a phone, even a burner phone that was powered on, its digital footprint exists somewhere in that data. As of 2025 and 2026, Sergeant Ritchie confirmed that new subpoenas are being served on undisclosed organizations, not individuals, organizations, financial institutions, internet service providers, insurance companies. The walls are closing in on whoever arranged this. The reward stands at $50,000, partly funded by the Peter Mayhew Foundation, named after the actor who played Chewbacca in Star Wars. The Star Wars community that Liz loved so much is still fighting for her. Somewhere out there, a dark Nissan Frontier Pro 4X that was seen circling a quiet Texas neighborhood before dawn is sitting in a garage, or buried in a junkyard, or hidden behind a false registration. Somewhere, the muumuu, the wig, and the boots are stuffed in a box or burned to ash. Somewhere, a person who walked up to a 29-year-old woman setting up a garage sale, listened to her say, "Good morning," and shot her 4 times is living a normal life. They eat breakfast. They go to work. They sleep at night. But the geofencing data exists. The financial records exist. The subpoenas are active. And the people who loved Liz Barraza, her parents Bob and Rosemary, her husband, and the entire 501st Legion are not going to stop until the person behind that disguise is unmasked. 6 years, 4 bullets, 1 doorbell camera, and a killer still wearing a mask.